I am Dr. Felice Gersh, your integrative OBGYN, speaking to you right now from London, England, where I am a speaker 4 different lectures for the Integrative and Personalized Medicine Conference. And it's been really fun. Today was day 1. I was the keynote speaker, so that was pretty thrilling. The room was completely packed, standing room only. So it was wonderful to come all the way out to London, England, and get such a fantastic reception. Well, I went to some of the preceding lectures, and they were excellent. And they were talking about the role of the gut microbiome and cancer. What they said was, in a nutshell, the microbial population of the gut, the GI tract, is really important for the evolution and maintenance of a healthy immune system. And by having a healthy, functional gut microbial population, the gut microbiome, you are less likely to develop cancer. And if you have cancer, you will be more likely to recover and survive. Well, what was mentioned was a lot relating to diet. Well, of course, diet is critically important, but what did not get mentioned, not even once, was the important role of hormones and the gut microbiome, and particularly estradiol, estrogen, in the form that comes from the reproductive, healthy, functioning ovaries of a woman. So what I spoke about today in my keynote lecture was the role of estrogen, particularly estradiol, the estrogen from the ovaries, menopause, and cardiovascular health. And I did bring up the gut microbiome because the gut microbiome is really important in everything, including ultimately through multiple secondary, tertiary, and so on ways that it can impact cardiovascular health. And I talked a little bit, I didn't have enough time to go into it in much depth, that estradiol is critical for maintaining the health of a gut microbiome to make it the correct population and diversity. And that when a woman goes through menopause, when she loses these vital life hormones being produced from her ovaries, there is a transformation of the microbial population of the gut in a negative way. So you get what is called dysbiosis. Dys meaning abnormal, not right. Biosis meaning life forms. So you get the wrong life forms. You get an altered and negative gut microbial population. The microbiome is the collective of all of these microbial life forms, and they could be anywhere. Now we're talking about the gut microbiome, the largest collection anywhere in the body, trillions and trillions of microbes. So it's important to know that every woman will transform in a negative way the microbial population of her gut microbes. And this means a tremendous amount for global health. And we're talking about immune function, cardiovascular function, neurological function, you name it, everything. So let me give you a little background on what we're talking about here, why the gut microbiome matters, and how going through menopause has this unrecognized globally, it seems, in the healthcare professional world, and of course in the consumer world, what happens to the gut microbiome when you have hormonal changes that occur, of course, universally in every woman, because every woman will at some point go through this menopausal transformation, which really shouldn't be called menopause. It should be called ovarian aging or senescence, because just so you know, I always talk about this, menopause is not about periods. Periods are a manifestation of having hormones. Menopause, they use the word menopause, but it's really ovarian aging. And it's a gradual process, not like crossing a finish line. It's a process. And so during this process, there will be a transformation of the microbial life forms. It turns out that these minute, microscopic life forms are like the engine or like the control center of our bodies. Nobody knew them. Nobody understood their significance. So not knowing, we killed them, we starved them, we tortured them, and then menopause transforms the population of them. And they are responsible for so many things. It's like a major factory going on in there. The microbial population make all kinds of things like hormones, they make peptides, they make enzymes, they make vitamins of all kinds. So this is like a factory going on, making all kinds of critically important things. They also have metabolites. These are the byproducts of fermentation. But of course, what are they fermenting? They're fermenting fiber. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. They need fiber because fiber is their food source. They are living creatures. Every living creature needs a source of energy to survive. And the energy source, also known as food for these microbes, is fiber. And where do they get the fiber? It has to be by us consuming foods with fiber. These are plant foods. Well, these fiber foods that are fermented by these very special gut microbes create metabolites called short-chain fatty acids. And these short-chain fatty acids act as food, actual nourishment to our own cells that line the gut. So it's a food source for our gut lining cells. These are also communicators. They act as signaling agents to, for example, our liver and help maintain proper liver function. One of the short-chain fatty acids, so there's three: acetate, propionate, and butyrate. Butyrate gets a lot of attention, but they're all really important. Butyrate actually has binding sites on the vagus nerve, which is the calming or relaxing baseline state of the autonomic nervous system, is controlled by the vagus nerve. So we call it vagal tone. And you need to have the right diet and the right microbes so that together with this synergy, they produce as a metabolite of fermentation butyrate. And this butyrate binds to receptors on the vagus nerve to make us feel happy and calm and peaceful, enable us to sleep properly and just feel good and not feel constantly like stressed and anxious. And that's what happens to women after menopause. They have this altered gut microbiome, so they do not do the proper fermentation to make the proper microbial byproducts called the short-chain fatty acids, which can lead down the road to unhealthy liver, like non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The new name for that is metabolic steatosis. And it will also not create enough butyrate to bind to the vagus nerve. And so women after menopause have anxiety and stress, and they don't have proper sleep. And the vagus nerve also has branches that go everywhere, including to the heart, back to cardiovascular health, that keep a proper healthy heart rhythm. And without that, you have more sympathetic or stress response of the autonomic nervous system. You get palpitations and can go into atrial fibrillation, which is now at epidemic levels, because not only are we having problems with our hormones changing our gut microbiome, but also the food that people are eating does not contain adequate, healthy fiber content. People are not eating enough plants. And now there's this, I think it's crazy. For certain populations, it makes sense, but for general people populations, it does not. And that is this anti-carb phenomenon where people are being told, avoid all carbs, like they're evil. Processed carbs, like eating a lot of sugar, and processed flours that have no nutrients and they turn into sugar rapidly in the body, that's bad. But eating root vegetables and whole grains, they are good. They are what the microbes need to ferment. So not only do they make all of these wonderful short-chain fatty acids and vitamins and hormones and neurotransmitters in this factory called the gut microbiome, but there are specific microbes that, working in conjunction with our own cells, called goblet cells, create mucus. And this mucus acts as a protective barrier to the lining of the gut. And this mucus barrier keeps the toxins that are in the gut, that are called LPS, lipopolysaccharides, also known as endotoxins, toxins from within, from reaching the actual cells. It's a buffer zone, this mucus protectant lining. When you don't have the right food, and you don't have the right microbes, which happens in women going through menopausal transition, you get the toxins in the gut getting right up to the lining, and it causes irritation or inflammation. And the cells of the gut lining are cells that are individual cells, a single layer, and they're very close together. They call that tight junctions. And they're held together by little fibers, like structural engineering, little fibers that hold it together. And what happens when you have this inflammation and these toxins from inside the gut lumen getting right up to the gut lining cells, because there is no mucus protectant any longer, they degrade these little fibers that hold the cells in tight junctions together, and the cells start to drift apart. That's called impaired gut barrier, also known as leaky gut. And then the toxins from within can pass between the lining cells and enter our body proper. Surrounding the gut is 70 to 80% of all of the immune cells of the body, called the GALT, gut-associated lymphoid tissue. And this is filled with immune cells. These are the protectors, also the attackers. They attack damaged cells to dissolve them. They also attack pathogens like bacteria and viruses and fungi and parasites and such, to try to kill them, to protect us. And it turns out that every immune cell in the body has estrogen receptors. When you don't have enough estrogen, which of course is what happens in menopause, these immune cells, the innate immune cells, the first line of defense, these are called macrophages and monocytes and neutrophils and mast cells. What happens is they become activated at a lower threshold, and they're activated through what are called toll-like receptors, these little receptors on the immune cells that have sensors like antenna and can tell when there are toxins around. The toxins and the bacteria coming out from the gut through the leaky gut, they bind to these special toll-like receptors and they activate these immune cells. And these immune cells have a lower threshold to become activated and become inflammation generators. They put out what are called inflammatory cytokines, these inflammatory particles, and these particles, they spread throughout the whole body in the bloodstream, creating inflammation in the arteries, in the brain, in the skin, everywhere. So you get systemic inflammation, and that underlies all the terrible things associated with aging, like neuroinflammation, cognitive mood changes, inflammation in the arteries, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease, and everywhere. It creates more inflammation in the bone, in the skin, more in the gut, everywhere. And these immune cells are like chronically activated, and you have chronic leaky gut, and this creates chronic low-level inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging, the inflammation of aging, but I call it the inflammation of estradiol deficiency and poor diets. So what do we do? Number one, because I don't want to just give you a problem, I want to give you a solution. So number one, we can't stop menopause. We can maybe delay it. We'll talk about that another time, but we cannot stop it. It is inevitable. 100% of females will go through menopause. It just depends on when, not if. So that is not a variable we can control. But what we can control is giving back bioidentical hormones to match somewhat the cycles and rhythms and levels of a healthy reproductive age woman. So that's giving bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. Very, very important for maintaining healthy gut microbial populations. We can also eat the foods that nourish and sustain our little friends, the gut microbes. So the foods are fiber foods, resistant starches like cold potatoes, which will not create increased blood sugar. They won't give you diabetes. They won't make you fat. It's purely food for your gut microbes. In addition to cold, not hot, cold potatoes, plantain, but don't fry it. Plantain is another very good one. You can also get potato starch and mix it with water and slowly increase it to tolerance, and that is also resistant starch. But also root vegetables like beets, super good for you. Beets and rutabagas and turnips and carrots, yams, sweet potatoes, excellent sources of fiber. So you want to eat root vegetables. So that would also include things like onions and garlic, everything that is a bulb, everything that grows under the ground. And then we want to have whole grains. Now, these are like the ancient grains, organic, like buckwheat, quinoa, millet, and amaranth. So these are they're all gluten-free ancient grains. You would cook them like rice. So you eat them in their natural forms, not like buckwheat pancakes, please. Not at this time. That's not going to nourish your gut microbial population. And we want to have diversity. Eating lots of different plants, colorful plants, every kind of plant gives you diversity of the gut microbiome. So we want to have a whole array of different types. And there's a dance of microbes with polyphenols. I call that the magic sauce of fruits and vegetables. These polyphenols are actually, most of them, phytoestrogens. And they actually sort of spur the growth of very specific microbes to create more diversity of your microbial population. And that is very important. And then we want to have probiotics. So you want to get high quality probiotics, sometimes a diversity of probiotics. So you don't always want to take the same ones over and over. So try to vary it up. And fermented foods. Studies out of Stanford showed that just eating fiber foods was not enough. You had to have fermented foods. My favorite is sauerkraut and kimchi. But you can ferment any crunchy vegetable, and it's very affordable if you do it yourself, and you can learn, or you can go to places like fermentation farms and you can buy pre-fermented vegetables, or you can do what most of us do. You buy high quality fermented cabbage, also known as sauerkraut. Now, I grew up with sauerkraut, so I developed a taste for it. But if you don't, try kimchi and try a different fermented food. So there's a number of different fermented foods. Nattokinase is another one. So look for fermented foods because that is really important for sustaining and developing a healthy gut microbial population. And what else? It turns out that our microbes have timed genes. They have clock genes. So when you feed them, helps to create diversity and the proper microbes. So make sure you eat a good breakfast, but just call it a morning meal because we don't want like the typical breakfast foods. They're usually not very healthy. So just call it morning meal. You can eat any foods. I like to encourage people to have a salad for breakfast or morning meal. So you want to have preferably a big breakfast or morning meal, a medium midday meal or lunch, and an early small dinner. And don't snack in between and have 13, or you can have more, but its return on investment is reduced, 13 hours of fasting from dinner to breakfast. By feeding your microbial population at the same time every day without a lot of snacks, you will help to develop an optimal gut microbial population. So by doing all of these things, getting the proper hormone therapy, eating the right foods at the right times, and don't forget, add in sleep, make sure your food is as much as humanly possible organic, clean, pure unpurified water, poisons going into our gut, kill the gut microbes. So pesticides, herbicides, chemicals, flavors, emulsifiers, artificial sweeteners literally are poison to our gut microbial population. Take them out of the diet. Do not eat processed foods. If it has ridiculous things in it, don't eat it. Eat food from the farm, okay? Farm fresh foods. Do not go for factory made foods or processed foods. And you want to work on sleep and stress and fitness, because actually there's data showing that exercise can help rejuvenate and improve the gut microbial population and improve the gut integrity. And also different forms of fasting. We'll talk more about that. There are fasting regimens besides just during the 24-hour day that can also help rejuvenate and improve the gut microbiome population and the state of the epithelial lining, the gut lining as well, to try to repair that leaky gut. And there are different supplements that can help, like L-glutamine is very helpful, zinc carnosine, and we can get more into that another day. But the important takeaway is menopause is a huge effector, a negative effector on the gut microbial population. It creates leaky gut. It creates gut dysbiosis. And we need to first recognize the problem, and then we can have optimal solutions that we can deal with this inevitable menopausal situation and the gut problems and the microbial changes that are part and parcel of menopause.